Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala salah. Hayya ala al-falah. Hayya ala al-falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the universe, the master of the day of judgment. I bear witness and testimony to the oneness of Allah, to his magnificence, his omnipotence, his might, his glory, to his being the creator and sustainer of all things, the giver of life, the guider of hearts, the master of the day of judgment. And I bear witness to the fact that Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his servant and final messenger. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him and upon all those who choose to tread in his path until the last day. It is said that as the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam would draw closer to the month of Ramadan, he would begin to make dua in anticipation of it. That when he found himself within this month that we find ourselves in, this blessed month of Rajab, he would begin, Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab, that, oh Allah, make blessed for us this month of Rajab. And then he would add to it, was Sha'ban, the month that's coming ahead of us, the month of Sha'ban, وَبَلِغْنَا Ramadan, and allow for us to reach the month of Ramadan. May Allah make us from amongst those who reach and benefit from the month of Ramadan. Where we are at now in this phase of our lives, to begin to think and ponder deeply upon why ritual is given to us. It's not meant to be an impediment or an obstacle, something that causes for us distraction in the course of a reality of living within this dunya. But ritual is a means to something, not as an end. And to then further the contemplation to think that there is nothing without meaning in Allah's plan. That he is Al-Hakim, the most wise of those who have wisdom. And so to recognize that within the course of our existence, that for many of us, we have been in a place where if we were born into a Muslim family, we have engaged in Ramadan for years. And even if we haven't been born into a Muslim family and came to it at a later phase of life, the reality of conversations around it is something that gives excitement and exhilaration. People anticipate it. But to ponder and reflect upon who you are in relation to it in the coming month necessitates recognizing first and foremost that Allah gave it to you and to offer to you an opportunity of engagement year upon year upon year, meaning it wasn't something that was just done once and then that's it. But you keep coming to it again and again and again throughout the years of your existence in this world. So there has to be some opportunity for continuity to increase. And some of that is going to be about recognizing the version of myself that I bring to it. Our prophet used to anticipate this 60 days to its coming. And that's not something to undermine. And you don't want to approach your engagement in the Jummah prayer as something that is just, again, the fulfillment of obligation. But sit with open hearts that render now the information that you synthesize as something that can be transformative on a subjective level. The idea of how to fast is not something that is difficult. You can literally sit in your room all day and sleep while the sun is up and you have fasted, so long as you didn't eat or drink. It's a very passive act. It's about abstainment, not doing something. But in order for it to now become something that's a spiritual vehicle that enhances the self, that allows for me to recognize and yield what only a practice like it can harness, I got to determine, firstly, that what I'm going to get out of it is going to be based off of what I put into it. And so you start to utilize these days in anticipation of that first day to say, what state am I going to be in so that it allows for me to harness from it as much as I can? And I start to attach purpose. I start to attach meaning that doesn't have to go somewhere far else, but to recognize for me individually, why do I do any of this in the first place? There's so much in this worldly existence that competes for control of your heart. You might not think about it so much, but it's built purposefully to attach itself to your focus. And that's not about, well, I do my prayers. I sit in the musalla all day. You can still be distracted. Your body can be here, but your heart can be elsewhere. But to understand that you are bigger than just the physical self. And what Ramadan affords is an opportunity to regain now control of self-regulation. That as a creature in creation, I don't just simply exist by nature in terms of what it is that I do. The birds don't wake up in the morning and say, do you think today we should fly to this part of the city or that part of the city? The dogs that are walking are not saying that maybe today I will tell the person that walks me that I want to go down this street or that street. They just do what it is that they do. And they live in the way that they were intended to live. Most of creation lives other than the way that it's intended to live, not by its own purpose and intentionality, but when humans are not living the way that we are supposed to live. We then cause a ripple effect to others. And the physical becomes now the determining factor. Materialistic gain becomes now the motivation and catalyst as to why I wake up and why I go to bed at the hours that I do. What fuels my motivation for choosing the choices that I choose? And Ramadan is, I'm going to put my heart back in control. I'm going to make decisions for the benefit of my inside, not at the expense of it. I'm not going to wait till the first day that the blessed month comes upon me to then start to get ready for it. But I'm going to start to get ready now because that's what a smart person would do. I'm not going to be distracted. I'm not going to engage in things that are going to pull me in different directions so that I just do it the same way again and again and again. And it doesn't then enhance for me with deeper perspective what only a month like Ramadan can really give to somebody. You probably heard hundreds of times the verses, the hadith, the teachings, the sayings. The blocks, the obstacles that come in the way are not now things that are externalized, but internalized. To be able to sit still and ponder and reflect upon your own individual relationship, not just with this blessed month on a whole, but within what you're bringing of yourself to it. And don't let yourself take from it anything other than what you are fully entitled to take from it. And it starts from today, not from 5 or 6 weeks from now. The idea of having awareness, perspective, deeper understanding. Ours is a tradition that doesn't tell us to just stop at the recognition of blessing, to have appreciation and gratitude for the fact that in the middle of New York City, I have actually a place where I can assemble for prayer, for the Jummah prayer weekly. That's amazing. And if you don't think it is, ask people who are 2 generations older than you, that lived through slavery, Jim Crow, that have lived through colonization and imperialism. If they could ever imagine that one of their ancestors would be seated where you are sitting right now, able to pray by their choice. So in understanding that our tradition is not just about the recognition of the blessing, but to take it as a means of recognizing also the one who gave the gift in the first place. You want to have awareness of the ni'mah, but you also want to understand who is the mun'im that gave it to you. Where did it come from? You don't want to stop and just say that I'm so happy I got this space, and then not get to the conclusion of being in a place of recognition that it came from someplace. And to allow for myself to deepen in my appreciation for the gift by understanding the gift giver and allowing for myself to have now a positive element of relation to that entity. And that's what a secular society pushes us away from. Egocentricity, the modern day shirk that is supremacy, that elevates whiteness to this place that says, idolize the self, idolize the ego. Do whatever you want simply because you feel like that's something that you should be entitled to doing. It removes the richness of contentment that can only come from a recognition both of the gifts that we have, the blessings, but also from the gift giver. It tells you that you are on your own, which can create loneliness. But it also tells you that you, by virtue of yourself, are the means through which you have achieved everything in your existence. And both create challenge because we don't know how to lean on others. And we also then become failures at being a means of support for those that are around us. On this campus, iftar has not happened in Ramadan for more than 2 years. May Allah bless us to be able to break fast together in the coming months. That means that you all here have unique responsibility, because you're not going to be the first, but you're going to be the first in a long time that reestablishes what Ramadan is like in this community in person. Can we have everyone please move up? You can come in close. If you kind of get to the backs of the area or just situate it to one side, people start to assemble in the hallway. So we can fill up the entire space. That would be great. I want you to think about this in a few different ways, individually and then communally. Individually, as you anticipate your preparation for Ramadan, step number 1, you have to understand that Shaitaan is real. And if you get to a place where you believe that somehow you are not in a situation ever where the waswasa of Shaitaan cannot get you, then he got you. Ibn Atta'illah, rahimahullah, in his hikam, he says essentially that if you think you are not arrogant, then you likely are. So individually, you want to be able to assess for yourself in anticipation of a month where our tradition tells us Futihat abwab al-Jannah, that the gates of paradise are open. Uhulikat abwab al-Nar, and the gates of Jahannam are closed. Wasufidat al-Shayateen, and the Shayateen, they're chained. That you know it, but Shaitan knows it also. So he has limited window of time to get you where you are most vulnerable. So from this day, you start to anticipate with subjectiveness as to where will you slip most likely. Because I'm not you and you're not me. So where Iblis can get us is distinct. The challenge that many of us have is that we don't see within ourselves, not simply what Allah sees within us, but we don't see what Shaitan sees within us. If Shaitan didn't think you had potential to be better than what you actually believe yourself to be, he wouldn't come at you in the ways that he does. And so think, who are the people that you will associate with that will make it easier for Shaitan to get you to do something that's going to take you steps back from meeting Ramadan to your potential best? What are the environments, the spaces that you will be in? Who are you around when you backbite and gossip? It has impact. You don't want to have headaches in Ramadan? Then don't do haram things. Not because you're being judged or you got to throw your back against the wall, but it impacts your ability. Women come to the Prophet ﷺ to seek intervention to break a nafil fast. It's not a fard fast in Ramadan. It's outside of Ramadan. They're having difficulty. And the Prophet doesn't engage them in this conversation and request. Somebody comes to mediate and intervene on their behalf, and the Prophet says, bring those women to me. And he says, bring a bowl. And in some of the narrations, he says to the women to induce vomiting. And they do so because the messenger is asking them to do it. And to their astonishment, meaty pieces of flesh come out of them. And the Prophet says they tried to do something halal, but they broke it on something haram. That all day they were eating the flesh of their brother's back, and this made it difficult for them to fast. And it's not just a women-only thing. Because there's hadith where the Prophet tells male companions that they should stop speaking poorly of others too. You don't want Shaitan to get you where you are most vulnerable because you're not adopting awareness and strategy. And the circumstances that yield vulnerability for you now, what are those things? Where you come together at the Jummah time in circles that you likely don't the rest of the week. That your convening is based off of shared what? Race, class, ethnicity? You sit in circles with a group of friends that you know and you let other people be by themselves. The hadith that tells us, كُلُّكُمْ رَاءٍ, that all of you are shepherds and all of you are responsible for your sheep, says that you and I are both in a dual role, a shepherd or a sheep, and that should be a conscious decision. But what it's also telling you is that you don't ever want to be a wolf. You definitely don't want to be what's predatorial. You don't want to let your brothers and sisters also be victim to something that sees them as prey. Don't let Shaitan get you in the coming days, and don't let anybody be by themselves. That they too now have to deal with what it's like to be alone and turn to things that nobody should have to turn to simply because there's not a sister or brother there to support them through it. If that means that you got to cut down on some of the things that pushes hearts away from you, then do it. Because you don't want to be the reason as to why somebody walks into a space and then they never come back again. Part 2, step 2 in anticipation, recognize the reality that every single day things are being created as new forms of desire for you. Before the world saw one of these, an iPhone in their hands, nobody was sitting in their room saying, man, I really wish I had something like that. There is created desire that is uniquely developed as a mechanism to get you to believe that your happiness is based off of purchasing what somebody is trying to sell you. Ramadan is literally about learning to be content, and not because you consume less, but through consuming less, it becomes a means of contentment. And so you understand that you are a good person, not because you are wearing something that has a certain brand name on it, not because you drive a car that purposely puts the ornament on the hood and doesn't hide it away somewhere, not because you have certain logos on your shoes or any of these kinds of things. You are good because God said he created you good. That humanity was made in the most beautiful of forms. So you are beautiful, and the people around you are beautiful too. You don't have to chase after the dunya to give yourself a sense of validation. But you want to be aware of the strategies that are implemented. Desire is something that is not just rooted in things like physical intimacy, food. These are things that have blessings to it as well. Can you imagine how difficult your life would be if just the act of eating was painful? But it's out of God's rahmah, Allah's mercy, that he puts pleasure in these things. I'm talking about understanding constructed desire that yields for us realities, that we see the entire world gearing up for conversations around conflict. What is it other than desire that allows for things to exist? Like a dunya that has more refugees in it than any other time in the world. What is it other than unsatiated desire, the pursuit motivated by greed, selfishness, egocentricity, that has troops lining up right now at borders thousands of miles away, that creates fear in the hearts of so many, but people could care less because they just want to fulfill what it is that their nafs is calling them towards. You don't want to lose sight of what the darkest potential of humanity can be, but you want to understand that all of it is connected to each other. And that self-regulating aspect of Ramadan kicks into high gear when you start thinking about it now. I don't need to worship my body, because if I do, as I get older, I'm going to die 1,000 times again and again as I see age set in. I don't need to be in worship of wealth and money, because nothing is going to ever then be satisfying to me. You don't want to pursue a job that necessitates you having to compromise on ethics, making decisions that will cause somebody else to live in pain, not just live with less, but live in actual pain so that you can get more dollars in your pocket. Ours is a tradition that doesn't teach us the acquisition of wealth is a problem. But what our tradition tells us is that you're not going to be asked how much money you have. You're going to be asked, how did you acquire it and what did you spend it on? So you start thinking about it now, at this phase where values are not just words that get thrown around and assigned to companies and corporations, but virtues are about individuals saying, what really guides my decision making? There are entire sectors of companies that are sitting right now saying, what's the next thing we're going to get them to buy? What's the next thing we're going to get them to believe that if they don't have it, their world will not feel fulfilled and content? Contentment does not come from having something outside of you. And I say it to you because I love each and every one of you. The most important thing that you have to understand is that contentment has to come from within. And if you're not able to carry that within yourself, regardless of the situations, nothing you purchase is going to make you feel that sense of safety, that sense of real contentment, real rida. Step number 3, as you are anticipating in what Ramadan is going to be like for you, if you have the means to fast, you should start fasting now. You don't want to get to day 1 and say to yourself, man, my head hurts. I wish I had some coffee. But you want to start anticipating what those days are going to look like. The idea is to not chase after feelings. You don't worship feelings in our tradition. You pray because you're supposed to pray, not because the prayer makes you feel a certain way. Even if you feel nothing in the prayer, you got to still pray your prayer. You fast because it's mandatory to fast. You don't want the physicality of it to be something that lessens now the spiritual gain. And it's not about, well, what do other people do or don't do? You be the reason as to why others around you are encouraged in a practice that not because of any fault of their own, but sometimes a lot of us turn away from religion because of quote unquote religious people. Nobody makes us feel like we're the ones that could actually do extra things. Nobody ever invites us to be able to be a part of something with real ihsan, real excellence. Start fasting now. Use the days and go back to step number 1, which I told you. Shaitan is going to give you every reason as to why you shouldn't do it. If you have physical capacity, the health, the ability to fast, start doing it. There's groups of students that go to break fast together on Mondays and Thursdays in Lipton Hall. You could be with them. You don't like them? Don't sit with them. I sit with some of these guys. I don't like them. But you go with people that you enjoy spending time with. And you start to anticipate it. A sub point to that, you have to recognize right now that not everybody has the ability to fast. There's people who have physical conditions, they have emotional and mental wellness conditions. There's for many people an potential obstacle that should not be there, that gets equated to an idea that Ramadan is only about fasting. It's not, it's about so much more. And as you are prepping, if you can, to fast, pick up the Quran and read it in these days. So it's not just mechanically that you're hearing someone else recite it. If you can't read Arabic, that's totally fine. Just pick up a translation and read it. Go on YouTube and hear somebody else recite it. Don't, for God's sake, be foolish and tell somebody else that there's no blessing and benefit in them accessing translations of the Quran. Literally, companions went all around and spoke to people through translation. Every group that they spoke to didn't know Arabic. You think the people in Persia, the Romans, the Byzantines, you think when people left to go to the Najashi in Abyssinia and they're speaking now the verses of Surah al-Maryam, that they're talking to them in Arabic? You don't want the ego to elevate itself by denigrating somebody else. Be kind to each other. Be compassionate to each other. Help people feel like I'm grateful that this person is in my life. Pick up the Quran. Prep yourself to have a relationship with it. Make it an opportunity for you to enhance your connection to God through this book. You want to also start to engage in just acts that are unambiguously kind and good. You have an opportunity to provide a meal for someone who is breaking fast, then do it. You can coordinate suhoor in your rooms, do it. You can get to a place where calls are put out to say who's going to help with Ramadan this year. Be the first one to jump. You don't need somebody's permission to do something right. You don't need somebody's permission to do good things. And you envision within the course of your day, what kind of things are going to come from me? Acts of volunteerism, acts of kindness, acts of generosity. I'm going to turn to the people around me to say, what is it that we can do together so that my heart is more soft and tender as I go into the month of Ramadan? You start to anticipate it. There's preparation. There's tangibles that I engage in. I start to also get to a place of recognition, of comfort, that spiritual growth necessitates areas of improvement. There's not any one of us that does anything perfectly. You don't want to adopt a self-deprecating viewpoint, but you want to enhance your understanding of the self by recognizing that there's good things that you do, how you will do them better, and the things that you know that you shouldn't be doing. So off the bat, don't lie. You're killing your heart. Don't break promises. Gossiping, backbiting is terrible. The Prophet ﷺ, when the companions ask him about it, and they say, what if it's true, O Messenger of God? He says, if it's false, then it's slander. A categorically different problem. Engage in some moments of reflection, of solitude, to say, what am I going to use this month to help me get through and overcome? Communally, to think now about where we are all together as a unit. I am excited at the aspect of being able to sit every night to break fast with each one of you. I love my kids and my wife a lot. And Ramadan has been so different for me the last 2 years because I haven't had the chance to break fast with the community that I'm blessed to serve. Before the pandemic hit, we were serving sometimes 1,000 people a night in this building for iftar. And there's so many people who stop us on the street to say, what's happening? What's going to go on? We are likely going to run 2 distinct programs, one on campus here for all of our students. And for every one of you that's seated here right now, or who's at Jummah right now at Tandon, or who's at the dental school praying the Friday prayer, there is that many more who are not here on campus at this moment, who have a class and they're afraid of a professor who makes them feel terrible for trying to just practice their religion. Everybody's going to come out in Ramadan. You want to get excited for it too. You want to get excited to be a part of a community that every Ramadan raises millions of dollars for the world's forgotten individuals. Survivors of abuse, refugees, people who are facing rent evictions and all kinds of things. You're going to get to be a part of helping to save people's lives. You're going to get to be able to sit with people who come from diverse backgrounds, to break down barriers that are constructed by nothing less than Shaitaan, that define who we sit with through elements of race and class and ethnicity alone, that has you not be able to see somebody bigger than what it is that your stereotypes perceive them to be, and pray in a gathering that forget about the world. Most masjid congregations don't look like that because they center around shared culture. You got to be excited. You got to be excited to want to be the person that is putting food in somebody's plate, to be the person that is passing out dates, to be the person that is inviting other students on this campus to come and sit in these moments of barakah that the angels are descending upon. And to be able to experience religion and spirituality in a way that you might not be able to experience again. We're going to need everybody's help to get it to where it needs to be. The most important things that you can do as we prep for it, come to the conversations, the meetings that happen to strategize. If you can't make those times, or it's not something that really kind of appeals to you, make sure that you are doing your part to not let any person on this campus feel like they have to experience Ramadan alone. So you use these days in your individual practice to also help us shape the communal aspect to it. But making sure that when somebody walks in through that door and you are sitting over here, that you go and you greet them and give them salams. You ask them what their name is. You invite them to come sit with you. You come into the room, ask other people, does anybody want to pray as well? You're going to do something, encourage others to join you, but with real ihsan, not last minute things, not things that are just passing notes, but let love permeate it. A real sense of, hey, this is how we're going to come together. Muslim students on this campus have conventionally been at the forefront of pretty much every social justice issue that takes place. Muslim students on this campus don't live in Muslim bubbles. They are RAs, they work in student government, they run the Muslim student clubs, but they do so with a collaborative mode of understanding that there are numerous underrepresented minority populations that don't have access to the numbers that you do. To counter that desire that we talked about before, that becomes institutionalized and shackles our psyche, you got to break it with real love. And it starts from here, where I say to myself, if I can't even ask the person that's sitting in a prayer room with me as to whether or not they want to pray with me or not, how their day is going, if they're doing okay, or even extend salams, how am I going to be able to move past anything greater than that? So you see, every opportunity is a mode of preparation, allowing for yourself to recognize that my individual experience is going to then impact the greater collective, the greater communal. Our Prophet used to make dua in this month. Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab wa Sha'ban wa balighna Ramadan. That, oh Allah, make blessed for us this month of Rajab, the month of Sha'ban, and allow for us to reach the month of Ramadan. He's getting himself ready. It's coming. He's getting himself aware. It's going to be here soon. Awaken your heart and let yourself make the dua in a way that permeates whatever it is that renders anything other than real consciousness. So Ramadan is coming, and you're going to get out of it what it is that you put into it. May Allah make us from amongst those who meet it, experience it, and benefit from its unique blessings. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. Our intention is to be able to provide a full Ramadan program here on this campus. We encourage you all to avail yourselves of it to help us to build it. You're going to find information coming to you electronically via email at various gatherings. You don't have to give up on your religious experience because of things like scheduling conflicts and other things to that effect. If you have any need or you have accommodations that are not being met, please come and let us know. And encourage your peers, your classmates to as well. And that's for the entirety of the year. But in Ramadan in specific, you don't have to make it either or. You're entitled to having a meaningful experience. And we want you to know that you don't have to choose to give up on that in that blessed month in order to be a student here. Make sure you're passing that message on to your classmates as well, so that they are aware and they know that there are other people who are going through this conversation inwardly. And inshallah ta'ala will be able to put on a meaningful experience, and each one of us will have a blessed Ramadan that draws us closer to an understanding of ourselves, and in turn, a deeper connection and understanding of our Creator. So a few du'as before we stand for prayer. Our sister Zinat Khan, who is a grad student here, her grandmother passed away in Hawaii last week. Her name is Silo Siddiqui, as well as Layla Awad, who's doing her master's here. Her grandmother, Viviana Alvarez, passed away as well. Romana Ahmed, who is the aunt of Sajid Safiullah, passed away from cardiac arrest. And Tahira Mahmood Khan, who is the mother of Asya Badi and Samir Khan, passed away in Ohio. Please make dua that Allah grants them all His infinite maghfirah, makes their graves places of peace for them, and grants them entrance into Jannah without any judgment. We have a request from Shifa Yusuf, who's a member of our community. Her aunt Zanuba Hakim is not well. You can make dua that Allah makes this ailment a means of purification in this world and a means of elevation in the next, and grants her a complete healing and shifa, inshallah. Lastly, after Jummah prayer is done, we're going to be having a meeting to plan for Ramadan. They'll start at 2:30 here in the prayer room. So for any of you who are interested in joining, our student leaders of our various clubs will be here for that. But you don't have to be a student leader alone. You can be here from 2:30 to 3:30 to join us in the planning and strategizing. We would love to have as many of you as possible be a part of that conversation as well. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Muhammad fil awwalin wa fil akhirin. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا. يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present herein and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi. If our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all other hearts that are gathered here, only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Increase us, Ya Allah, in all that is good. Increase us in courage, compassion, and confidence. Protect us from any affliction, anxiety, or anguish. Remove from our hearts any feelings of bitterness, jealousy, animosity, or envy towards any of your creation. Grant us hearts that are filled with understanding and hope. Hearts that are drawn towards things of real goodness and beauty. Hearts that find themselves deep in your remembrance. For indeed in your remembrance do hearts find rest. Bless each and every one of these young people who are assembled here today on this day of Jummah, Ya Allah, and give to them and their loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. Put barakah into their studies, increase them in their sincerity, and make them a continued means of benefit and blessing for themselves, their loved ones, and any creature of your creation that they come into interaction with in this world. Help them to see themselves the way that you see them, Ya Allah. Help them to see their inherent gifts, their goodness, their beauty, both inward and outward. Let not any one of them fall to the waswasa of Shaitaan, and make them and all of us only our potential best selves when we reach that blessed month of Ramadan. Help us, Ya Allah, to be ready for it, to anticipate it with excitement and exhilaration. And from this community, Ya Rabb, elevate our hearts so that we can in turn be a means through which you bring light, life, and love to the rest of your creation. Make blessed for us this month of Rajab. and make blessed for us the coming month of Sha'ban, and allow for us, Ya Rabbi, to be able to reach that month of mercy, that month of blessing, that month that is a gift for each one of us, that month of Ramadan. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وأقيموا الصلاة